It's Fans Corner. Welcome to it, and thank you so much for making time for us. We are back in the CAF Champions League semi-finals. The first leg of the semi-finals played in South Africa between two Egyptian giants and two South African giants. The number one and number two in the current season log standings in both countries. Number one in Egypt is Pyramids. Number two is Al Ahly right now as it stands. And number one and number two in South Africa is Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates. There's two South African sides were hosting the Egyptian sides. The first game was played between Mamelodi Sundowns and Al Ahly out in Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria. That game ending in a goalless draw, which if you look at it from a perspective of Al Ahly, they are the ones who are happier with the draw, because they believe they can go finish the job out in Egypt. I listened to their coach's post-match interview, and he sounds quite confident that Marcel Koller, the coach of Al Ahly, sounds quite confident that they can go finish the job in Egypt. What I actually have to say about this particular game, I'll talk about the Pirates game as well, because I wanted to just do one video for both games, because they just played back to back. There was not enough time to do recordings and so on. But yeah, if you look at the Egyptian reaction after the game, the Egyptians, the Al Ahly players in particular, after the game, you could see that they were grateful for the draw, that the fact that they did not lose the game. And then you listen to their coach. I think they believe they can go finish the game. They can go finish this tie out in Egypt. But having looked at the game, the first 10 minutes of that particular game, I did not expect. I thought, because of the kind of reputation that Mamelodi Sundowns has in the continent, I felt like Al Ahly were going to come and sit back a little bit and grow into the game. But it was the other way around, because the first 10 minutes, I think I saw Al Ahly looking a little bit more like the home side, and just the first 10 minutes. And then Sundowns growing into the game and dominating, as they always do, dominating the position and so on, but unfortunately could not create goal-scoring opportunities. The one good thing, one great thing that Al Ahly did for themselves was to make sure that Sundowns do not make box entries, because Sundowns, if once they start doing that, they're going to punish you. They'll find a way to punish you. They tried by all means to reduce the Sundowns attack from making entries into those advanced positions. But when they had the ball, Al Ahly themselves, they also looked quite threatening, especially on the flanks. But the one thing that I feel like Sundowns did pretty well was to try and isolate those the wingers of Al Ahly. They tried to make sure that every time the winger has a ball, so that they don't cut across and make those diagonal runs, they make sure that they isolate them and pocket them at the sides there until they are suffocated and end up making an undesirable pass. I think that's where Sundowns actually won those flank plays. But in the middle of the park, I think that's where I have to give credit to Al Ahly. I feel like they really competed in the middle of the park for the majority of the game. That's where they tried by all means to make sure that they win some. There were so many. If you remember the first half, if you watched this first half, you would have seen there were so many interceptions from the Al Ahly players. They were reading the passes from Sundowns and making sure that Sundowns don't make those dangerous passes. Even in the final third, I think the game plan for Al Ahly actually quite worked. I think the other thing they said to do was to get that away goal. They could have got it. If you look how the first half actually ended, the first 10 minutes, as I said, the first 10 minutes Al Ahly looked very good, and also the last 10 minutes of the first half. So Sundowns, if you look at them in the first half, they dominated the 25 minutes in between those 10 minutes. So this was the first half was a game of three patches. The first patch was Al Ahly, then it was Sundowns for a large majority of the time, and then the last 10 minutes it was Al Ahly who looked like they could get a goal scoring opportunity. But in the second half, I feel like it was mostly Sundowns. Unfortunately, again, Al Ahly were on top of their game in terms of making sure that Sundowns don't make those box entries, which is a very smart move if you think about it, and how Sundowns usually score their goals. So and in that regard, I feel like Al Ahly have an advantage here, going to play home. We know Sundowns have the experience of playing these games in Africa in continental competitions, but I'm not sure if I said it here or I wrote it on the socials, that I would have preferred Al Ahly to play Pirates and Sundowns to play Pyramids, because I feel like Sundowns would have actually dealt with Pyramids and Pirates would have dealt with Al Ahly because of what I saw in the game group stages, especially Pirates going to Al Ahly and winning in Egypt. So it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good right now for both the South African teams, looking at what they have to go and do out in Egypt. Not to write them off, because anything can happen. We've seen Pirates actually have this thing of going to North Africa and getting a result. Sundowns can also pull it off. Both of them can still pull it off. I just feel like the advantage right now is with the Egyptians. We've seen Pirates going to Al Ahly and winning. We've seen Pirates going to Algeria and winning. And I think if they can do it against Pyramids, this is the chance for them to do it against them, to go out and do it out there in Egypt. Now let's go to the Orlando Pirates game. By the way, before we go to the Pirates game, there were two you saw Al Ahly, ne? They had two opportunities. They scored two offside goals, which should have sent the signal to Sundowns that they can score even away from home, which they couldn't because they were offside. And there was another one that hit the post, but even that had it found the back of the net, I think it would have been chopped off because it looked offside to me. Now getting into the Pirates game, Pyramids, of the 4 teams that are remaining in the current in the semi-finals, on paper it looked, you could give Al Ahly the benefit of the doubt. You could give perhaps Sundowns, because of the history of this competition, especially in recent days. You'd probably rank and say Al Ahly, Sundowns, and maybe Pirates, and then put Pyramids at the bottom, especially since it's their first time in this particular competition. But if you watched the 2 games, I think I would understand if someone says Pyramids are probably the most likely to make it to the finals. Looking at how they played, looking at how they look on the field of play, I think they were the better team, the best of the 4 teams that we've seen in this weekend, in this first leg semi-finals. Of the 4 teams, I think Pyramids looked more dangerous than all of them. One of the things that they did so well was to play to their strength. They don't look like a North African team. And by that I mean, we know the style of the North African team is quite similar across the North African area, whether it's an Egyptian team, an Algerian team, a Moroccan team, and even a Tunisian team. They look quite similar in terms of how they play the game, except Pyramids. Pyramids don't play like them, okay? The similarity, they also have this dirty side of the game, these North Africans in particular. You see how they play. They're quite emotional in the game. They try to buy the referee. They roll on the floor and so on. But you look at Pyramids and how they play the game. They play like a proper structured team. They play to their advantage, and their advantage in this regard, especially this season, their strength. They play to their strength. Their strength is that they're very good offensively. They understood that, and they used attack as their form of defense. But when they needed to defend, they defended as a team. They were alert throughout the whole game. They gave Pirates absolutely no chance. Not to say Pirates did not create chances. We saw them creating chances, but they look much stronger than Orlando Pirates. And my worry is that now Pirates have to go and play them out in Egypt. It's going to be a very difficult game. I'm not going to write Pirates off, but I'm just saying they look quite strong, this Pyramids team. They look really, really strong. Of the 4 teams, I actually tipped them to be more at the more advantageous point at this moment. They look much better than all the other 3 teams they have to play against. Now let's get to the hot topic. Yo, there was a lot in that in that Orlando Pirates and Pyramids game. It was drama. 2 goals chopped off after huge celebrations. Fiston Mayele scored in the first half. That goal was judged to be offside. It sparked a lot of debates on social media. Luckily, because it happened in the first half, most of us had time to go into social media and hear what people say. We also got to hear what people on TV, the pundits and commentators had to say. I'll come back to that goal because that's the biggest bone of contention. And then they also came and scored again in the second half. And this time around, there was a handball. I could not see enough of that handball contact. I thought it hit the waist of the Pyramids player, but I guess zooming in, the people with the proper technology to zoom in saw a handball there. I just want to go back now to Yeah, I just want to go back to now the offside one. I'll tell you, I'll confess first. When Mayele was in an offside position, we all saw that. I think most of us would have agreed that he was offside when we saw him before the ball was played. But as soon as the ball was on the air and Mbogazi made contact with the ball, most of us then concluded that because Mbogazi, as an opposing player, played the ball, therefore he makes Mayele to be in an he cancels the offside of Mayele in that case, which is what we are used to, that if you're in an offside position and the ball is played but your opponent, the defending team, a player from the defending team makes an attempt to play the ball and they make a contact with the ball, therefore if the ball lands on you get to score, and then it will be a goal. That's what we are used to. But I was convinced that it was onside. When I looked at it, I said, no, they robbed a pyramid. That's what I thought. And I started listening to people's comments. I actually also went on social media to see people's comments, and also on TV. And I picked up on a few things, and I went and did my own reading. I went on to the internet, the IFAB website, which is the IFAB is the organization that deals with the football laws, they call it the laws of the game. They are the regulators of the laws of the game. They make the laws, they make the changes to the laws of the game. They're also recognized by FIFA. FIFA is represented in IFAB. It's the International Football Association Board, which makes this, it's a custodian of the laws of the game across the whole world. FIFA as the governing body of football all over the world, they've recognized IFAB as the custodian of the football laws. So if you go to their website and look at the football laws of what they call the laws of the game, and look at law number 11, especially 11.2, you'll get the clarity as to what happened with the goal that was scored by Mayele there. And quite frankly, they got it spot on. I know there are many people who are going to disagree with this thing. Number one, I'm not going to read the whole thing; is quite long. You can go. I'll put a link for those who are watching this on Facebook, on YouTube. You'll get to see the link on the video description. The link that deals with this particular law. Okay, so number one, if a player is in an offside position and gains advantage of the ball after the defender has made contact with the ball, the referees have to look at whether the defender's contact with the ball was deliberate, number one, okay, so that they can rule out things such as a deflection. For instance, if there was a deflection, it's a contact from the defender, but it's a deflection, okay, so it doesn't count. In that case, it means you'd be offside. You'd still be offside because the defender did not have control of the ball. It was just deflected if you were in an offside position. The same way as if the goalkeeper makes contact. For instance, if the goalkeeper saves the ball and you were in an offside position, the goalkeeper makes a save, the rebound will not be considered as a goal because you were in an offside position. I think that one is one that many of us are familiar with. But now, when it comes to this particular one, they say the following criteria should be used. I'm now reading 11.2, but deep down there, because there's quite a lot of criteria that they follow. They say the following criteria should be used as appropriate as indicators that a player was in control of the ball and as a result can be considered to have deliberately played the ball. Okay, so this is now a criteria to decide whether the player was in a position to deliberately play the ball, which is now we're looking at Mbogazi. Did Mbogazi deliberately play the ball? On face value, he deliberately played the ball, but there is a criteria to determine that, which is what I'm reading here. If you look at criteria number 4, I'm not going to read all of them. Criteria number 4 in particular, which deals with this particular situation, it says the player must have had time to coordinate their body movement. Okay, he must be in a position to have time to coordinate his body movement. That is, it was not a case, it says here, it was not a case of instinctive stretching or jumping. Okay, means the player who attempts to play the ball deliberately to try and defend must not be in a position where he has to to stretch instinctively, or to jump, or a movement that achieved limited contact of the ball. So in that case, you saw Mbogazi had to jump to hit the ball, and he had limited contact of the ball. Therefore, he did not have control of the entire ball. He had limited contact of the ball. That's why he could not head it forward. It only went backwards. So a ball moving on the ground, it says here on criteria number 5, a ball moving on the ground is easier to play than a ball in the air. So that's the criteria that would have been used to disallow this particular goal. So if we go by those particular rules and those particular criteria, then we'd actually say VAR got it correctly there, and the referee also got it correctly there, because in that situation, Maele was indeed in an offside position. Yes, Mbogazi, if we look at it, made an attempt to play the ball deliberately, but his movement, his position, and the way in which the ball was played disqualifies him from deliberately playing the ball, because of the fact that he did not have control. He did not, it says here, the player did not have time to coordinate his body movement, and was in a position where he was jumping. They also include instinctive stretching, or a movement that achieved limited contact of the ball. So from that interpretation, then I guess it makes that particular ruling of the goal to be offside as a correct one according to the rules of the game. And the other thing I think we need to understand as football-loving supporters or people is to differentiate between the laws of the game and the regulations. Okay, there are what we call competition regulations. I think the last time we had this, we were talking about away goals and the likes. There's what we call competition regulations. Competition regulations are done by the organizers of the competition. CAF, as the organizers of the CAF Champions League, can have their competition regulations. Then now, what's the difference between the regulations and the laws? The regulations are what happens outside, mostly outside the field of play. The football laws, which does not really change or every time. Yes, the IFAB makes changes every now and then, and they communicate it to football federations across the world. But the regulations, like last time I saw, we had a serious debate on whether the away goal rule still applies, because people saw it being cancelled in UEFA. UEFA, as an organization, they've made regulations in their competitions that they'll cancel the away goal rule, but CAF has not made that a ruling for their regulations. That's why if you go to the CAF website and their regulations document, you'll find that the away goal rule still stands. That's a regulation, it's not a law. Okay, the laws of the games are what actually control the game inside the field of play, as to what constitutes a free kick, what constitutes a penalty, what constitutes an offside. But those ones are regulated by IFAB, the International Football Association Board, which is the one that teaches us about things such as offsides and so on. I felt like let's share these things and educate each other. Where I'm wrong, you can also educate me as well, so that we can have a proper understanding. Let's not argue with emotions, especially when it comes to decisions like this that are very dramatic. Let's argue with the facts. Let's rather argue with the interpretation of the facts. I also had the Pyramids coach saying, I won the game today 2-0. I also think probably he doesn't understand the laws of the offside in this regard. Maybe he may understand it, but also has his own interpretation. Okay. Otherwise, I still feel like the Egyptians have an upper hand on this one. It might just end up being an all Egyptian final at the end of the day. The two teams that are competing for the Egyptian Premier League might end up being in the CAF Champions League finals, because it doesn't look good for the South African teams right now. We'll see what happens next week. Otherwise, this has been Fans Corner, a very lengthy conversation because of the two massive games that you've just seen. We'll talk about Chiefs. We'll also watch Chiefs. We'll talk about Chiefs I'll do another video for the Chiefs and cheaper game in the next video for tomorrow. Otherwise, this has been Fans Corner. Thank you so much for your time. We meet again in the next one.